All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 3rd Thursday Web Forum for the Southeast Conservation Adaptation Strategy, or SECAS. I'm Hillary Morris. I work on user support and communications for the Southeast Conservation Blueprint. Sorry that my voice sounds like a rusty gate this morning. I'm a little bit under the weather, but excited to be here with you guys. We host this web forum on the third Thursday of every month right here at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's intended as an opportunity for staff to share the latest updates on the blueprint, get input and involvement from folks like y'all, and share exciting science and action in the world of landscape conservation in the Southeast and Caribbean. So here's our usual agenda. I'll start out by introducing our presenters who will speak for 30 to 40 minutes or so. We'll wrap up with some Q&A and discussion, and then at the end, I'll preview next month's web forum, and we'll hear some updates from your SECAS staff. As a heads up, we are recording this web forum, as you can probably see. That's just for the one or two folks who inevitably wanted to come but had a conflict. If you want to get a hold of the recording, I will be posting it on the calendar event on the SECAS website within a few days, or you can always just email me for that afterward. So any questions or comments before I introduce our speakers and we get started? All right, so today we're going to be hearing from Kirsten Mickow and Kristen Weil, who are senior program managers for urban analytics and geospatial analytics with the Trust for Public Land. They've found that over 100 million people don't have access to a park within a 10-minute walk of home, and Trust for Public Land has been mapping park access for all of the urban areas in the United States, including Puerto Rico. So their mapping platform, ParkServe, can help you pinpoint park investments to address park need, climate equity, and health. So we actually do use ParkServe data in the Southeast Blueprint in our equitable access to potential parks indicator. So we're really excited to hear from them about the latest and greatest with this data set and mapping platform. So Kirsten and Kristen, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Hillary. So I'll start with the ParkServe overview, and then we'll move to Kirsten to give us some more information about the 100 largest cities, and which are park score cities. So I guess let's just dive into it. All right. Great. And interrupt me if any of the tech gets weird, because I can't see anyone's faces now. All right, so ParkServe is a national parks database and mapping application that exists for about 15,000 cities and towns. So the extent of ParkServe is every single urban area in the US and any city or town that even slightly overlaps that any urban area. And so that's represented in this map by all of the orange dots. So we have Hawaii, Alaska, there's more up there. The continental US and Puerto Rico is new this year. And for that extent, we maintain a urban parks database, so like local parks, neighborhood parks, et cetera, all kinds of different parks, any park that overlaps a city or town or urban area in our extent. And that at this time is about 150,000 parks. And y'all will be getting the slides. This is a link to our About page that has tons more info. So based on this urban parks database, we're able to get a snapshot of park access, park proximity. So we're looking here at the parks in dark green, their 10-minute walk service areas in light green, and then the ParkServe mapping application has an analysis embedded in it that prioritizes the gaps in the 10-minute walk. And that's what this purple spectrum is. So we have any area outside of a 10-minute walk where people live is at least moderate priority. And the priority increases based on socioeconomic and environmental metrics that we'll talk about in a minute. So before we get to the mapping application, I just want to frame it around who uses it and how people are using it. So we have a user survey, and that is, that's given us a snapshot of all of the different users of ParkServe. We see that the majority of ParkServe users are kind of city government. So we're getting a lot of city planners and parks and rec departments, et cetera. We also see other governments. So we have state government, county, federal, and this is all self-reported. But then the second largest chunk of people who use ParkServe are members of the public. So people that are going to the website to advocate for new parks in their community or learn about park access in their community. So they're not associated or affiliated with any kind of parks profession. And then there's kind of like the et cetera, where we have nonprofits, community-based organizations, researchers, private sector, journalists, et cetera. So how are these people using ParkServe? And I've actually just taken direct quotes from users, and I'm going to go through that. There's a lot of text, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly in the interest of time. But that city government and other government section is looking at prioritized park master plan projects by need according to social equity, informing parks and rec staff and leadership about the residents that are served by a park and for creating new parks. And then to inform certain environmental risks for people with chronic illnesses. So I'm really just taking out random quotes to kind of get a smattering of all the different things that people are doing. And then on the other side, members of the public are saying that they're using ParkServe. One individual said to determine an advocacy topic to decrease obesity in the Latino population, to inform my local community about creating new public park spaces. And another person said, I will share the information with my friends and family who are interested, which is awesome. And then this is the et cetera, nonprofits and private sector. So we're seeing people educate elected officials about their local parks, guide communication with city officials, know how to better plan community events, which is very interesting. Helps me understand park inequity, inform research questions, and look at how partnership with the public school district might exist. So altogether, we see that ParkServe is useful for both communication and planning, are kind of the larger topic that people come to ParkServe for. In like 3 weeks ago, we launched our new mapping application. So this is a screenshot of our old version. And then on May 24th, we launched the new user interface. And so there's some increased functionality, and it's just like a lot more slick and easier to find all the different tools that we have that are pretty cool. And the statistics are all front and center. So we're really excited about this new user interface. This is the URL for ParkServe. And again, this will be included in the slides. Yeah, and so with this most recent release, we also added all of Puerto Rico, all of the urban areas inside Puerto Rico, and I'll get to that. Okay, I think I'll actually just pivot to the mapping application now. Okay, so here is tpl.org/ParkServe, and that is the URL that you'll find ParkServe at. And we also upgraded the landing page. So now we have our search bar here at the top, which we've always had, but we also have this fun infographic that kind of just gives examples of cities in ParkServe, just for fun. Our data, all of our data are available for download. All of the parks, all of the 10-minute walk service areas, All of the park priority areas and a couple other pieces from the website are all available for download, and that's through here. And then all of the information that we show on the website is very detailed. Description is in this methodology page. So if you have any questions about anything you see in the website, it should be here. We also have user stories. So these are just 3 stories of how cities have used ParkServe to make actual change on the ground. And then Park Score, which Kirsten will get into after this demo. Let's see, where should we go? Go to Atlanta. So you type your name into the search bar and the mapping application launches. The first thing you see are the parks, again, the 10-minute walk service areas and the park priority areas. And then city level statistics on the right-hand side. So we can see that 77% of Atlanta residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park. And then we have that broken down by race, ethnicity, age, and income. You can do a comparison, and you can also export this as a PDF if that's, you want to use it as a communication tool. You can also zoom to the urban area. A lot of cities like this one have a metropolis, and folks like to plan at that level. And so this tool is designed to do that. And now you see the whole urban area, and that when you look at this urban area scale, we're only at 25% served. I'm going to go back to the city level for this demo. The major ways to interact with the website are through these panes: explore, prioritize, and evaluate. Explore just means, it's the table of contents. You can cruise around and turn on information like schools and their 10-minute walk service areas to try to get a sense of where school joint use agreements with schoolyards might help fill gaps in the 10-minute walk. You can click on things on the map to further understand what's going on there. So for example, this tooltip describes the formula that the priority areas are based on, and it's based on population density, density of low-income households, density of people of color, air pollution, urban heat islands, and combined health metric that takes into account sedentary behavior and poor mental health. So by clicking on this block group that was the highest priority, we can scroll through and see that it's the actual statistics about this individual block group, and you can take that and use it as information to advocate for a park there. We have playgrounds and trails within parks. We have an equity analysis that's for the 100 largest cities. And then we have just tons of demographic information. So you can see from the environmental justice EJ screen, the linguistic isolation across the city, and also people of color. And this one has the click ID that actually has a bar chart. So you can see, hover on the chart and get more information. And there's also a table down here. So there's a ton of stuff. I could really go down a rabbit hole with this, but feel free to explore, right? If that's what it's called. So up next is prioritize. Excuse me. So while ParkServe's kind of primary purpose is to fill the gap in the 10-minute walk, and for folks that really don't have any access to any resources at all, we want to fill that gap. However, we also want the tool to be more applicable for other reasons as well. So first of all, we can we've taken the formula that park priority areas is based on and broken it out by its individual parts. And you can just like adjust these. So they're equally weighted, so they all start at 100. But you can mess with this and see the values on the map change. And then here, this toggle all of a sudden fills in wall to wall for the whole city. So if you're interested in investing in current parks or just understanding these metrics of how they are in your city, this prioritized slider is going to be really powerful, just to customize where you're investing in your city. I think we've been in Atlanta for long enough, so let's go to San Juan. Like I said, Puerto Rico is now in the tool, so we can go to San Juan. Flag was. And the final tool here is evaluate. So in this location, we can see that there's this high priority area for new park out here. So we're going to actually draw in a park. So let's zoom in. And all you have to do is just hit this park button and draw in a park. You can also draw in trails. So maybe you have a trail that you want to connect from one thing to another. And you just hit this run analysis. And this actually takes maybe like 5 minutes because it's doing a lot. So be patient with it. I ran it already this morning in the interest of time. And so the one that I ran this morning was for Birmingham, Alabama. Here we are. I used an example of a schoolyard. So here I have my schools on the map and their 10-minute walk service areas. And there's this school that has the potential to fill a gap in the 10-minute walk access. So I covered that in as a park. And then when you run it, now all of a sudden your evaluator gives you information about that potential park. So this is a really powerful tool. We've drawn in one park. You can also draw in trails, like I said. It is 6.6 acres. And a lot of cities are really interested in their overall 10-minute walk access percentage. So this particular park would boost the percentage, not by a lot, but by a little bit. So it goes from 55.8 to 56.3. And then down here, we have information about who has access to that park. So this park, within the new service area of this park, which is the yellow area, we have 1,900 people, who about 2,000 people live in this service area of this potential new park. And then we break that down by existing access and new access. And that's described here, but basically what it means is where the new service area in yellow overlaps the old service area in light green, those people, that's the subset of the 2,000 people that already did have access to a park and therefore are classified as existing access. Where this yellow service area overlaps the purple park need area is where all of a sudden everybody in this area is going to have access to a park within a 10-minute walk, and they currently do not. And that's new access. And that's broken down by race, ethnicity. So you can see, hover on it and get the actual breakdown. Age, again, you can hover and get existing and new. And income. And then down here, you can hit export report, and that'll come out as a PDF that you can print out. That also takes like 30 seconds. That one's still running. Yeah. So I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. Kirsten, do you think I want to talk about this. Sorry. How do we update our parks data? So we did a huge data collection effort back in like 2018 to get all of the parks data for the whole country. It was released in 2018. It was actually several years of data collection. And then since then, the 100 largest cities are very rigorously updated every year. But we kind of rely on users to help us update parks data outside of the 100 largest cities. So here, if you hit, are we missing a park in your community? Tell us, edit your park data. It's going to send you to the city that you are viewing in ParkServe. This is a pop-up help. This didn't work. Maybe it doesn't work for Puerto Rico yet. We'll try it for over here. I'm in Atlanta. Sorry, guys. Okay, Atlanta, go to Atlanta. Cool. Anyways, I guess you can just search here.
Sometimes when the internet is lagging, I have an issue with it zooming to the city. So I think that's.
Oh, it's my internet. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Like, this was working.
Yeah, especially if the application's open or the ParkServe pages.
I have 1,000 tabs open at this time. Okay, cool. That's good. Thanks. Anyway, so the park reviewer is going to let you, if you're have better internet than me, edit your parks data. When you're in the reviewer, it goes to the city, and you can click on parks. You can edit attribute information about the parks. You can edit the park boundaries. You can suggest that we delete the park. You can draw in new parks and fill out their attributes. And one note that I'll make is that when we added Puerto Rico into the database, we used OpenStreetMap parks, and those are crowdsourced and not verified quite yet with the level of rigor that we usually verify at most of our parks database. So if anybody has any insight on parks around Puerto Rico, we would love for you to please use this park reviewer to that's so frustrating, to go in and edit any park data. And then any edits that are submitted via the park reviewer, we verify to the best of our ability, and then we try to get it updated within a month. We have edits are submitted, we review, we process, and they're posted within a month, about monthly. Yeah, and then other stuff here is the user survey, another link to the data downloads, another link to the about page, and another link to the park score index. And where was I making that PDF? Success, here it is.
One other note on the data collection is that we also can receive spatial data directly, and we'll upload that. So if you have any contacts who have the source GIS data, if that's sent directly to us, we're able to upload that to the system. So that's a more efficient way if we need to do a larger database update or you have those boundaries ready to go.
Thanks. Yep. And then this is the last thing that I'll just show y'all is that when you do that evaluate, we're going back a couple steps here, but when you run that evaluate, you can get access to you can download this PDF report where it's showing you the 2,000 people total, about 1,000 new. Here's your park, here's your service area, and then here's the demographic breakdown that you saw in that pane, but now you have it packaged up as a PDF report. So that was like so much information. I'm going to stop sharing and kick it to Kirsten for even more info. Yeah, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Are you able to share the slide deck again by chance if you have it up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, to the ParkScore slide.
Sure. I think while I'm at it, I'll just touch on this slide really quick. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. We recognize that ParkServe is a 10-minute walk to a large definition of parks. So we are working, Kirsten and I are based in the Land and People Lab, which is kind of like a think and do tank of Trust for Public Land. And we're constantly doing research to figure out how to get a better picture of park access. And that involves understanding metrics about park quality. We have information about park acreage and equity. For the 100 largest cities, we're looking to expand that. And we're also looking at park ways to get at park usage. So this will be in your slide deck, so I won't get too into it. So Kirsten has.
Thanks, Kristen. Awesome. So one thing I wanted to talk about was really one product that is derived from the ParkServe application, which is the ParkScore Index. And this index ranks the 100 largest or most populous cities in the U.S. based on their park system and assesses how they're meeting the needs for parks. And this is an annual product that's released every Wednesday before Memorial Day. So this was released on May 24th, same day as the update for the ParkServe application. And each year we're assessing, who's the top city for park systems across the U.S. And this year the top was DC, which is the same as last year. They're holding strong. And the way that we're measuring this, if you go to the next slide, is based on 5 characteristics of a park system. The first is acreage, so how much park space is dedicated to, how much city space is dedicated to parks, and what is the median park size. Access, so this is derived from the ParkServe mapping platform. How are people served by nearby parks? So that's looking at that percent served. Investment, which is looking at how much spending is going into parks across the city, both from public agencies, nonprofits, and private entities. Park amenities, which is looking at 6 different amenities that serve diverse user groups. And then the 5th and final category that's a recent addition as of 2 years ago is equity, which is looking at the fairness and who has access to nearby parks and park space. So we're looking at the distribution of access to parks and the amount of park space according to race and income. If you go to the next slide. So looking at the Southeast cities, I pulled out from our rankings page, so that link below links to a Tableau dashboard that shows the rankings for all 100 cities, but looking across the cities that fall within your kind of region, Arlington is number 1, followed by Cincinnati, and you can look at how they score according to each of these categories. You go to the next slide. And as part of this process, so we're using the GIS data from the ParkServe application, but we're also using an annual survey that we produce every fall called City Park Facts that's assessing the data we don't have spatial features for. So we're looking at investment, the count of amenities, also programming, and other important aspects of park systems. And all of that is compiled and shared out to the public as well through our City Park Facts dashboards and Excel spreadsheets. So the link that Kristen shared earlier to the downloads page has all of these resources that show all of the kind of tabular parks data that we collect for the 100 largest cities and all of the GIS data available as well. So I think that's all I have on ParkScore. I guess we can open it up to questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for that awesome presentation. We have had a few questions in the chat, some of which have sort of been addressed as we went, but I'll just briefly recap those for the recording and for anybody who wasn't monitoring the chat. We did have a suggestion from Christina Edwards that they would love to work with TPL to see what kind of data would be needed to include the US Virgin Islands. And my ears really perked up at that because I think on our team, Alex Lamley spoke with you all about that yesterday, that as part of our expanding the blueprint to the USVI, we'd love to be able to include or equitable access to potential parks in Decatur there as well. So I was excited to hear that suggestion from Christina. It sounds like y'all are very open to working with them. Is there anything else you'd want to add to that?
Thanks. Yeah, it would be nice to have some help on that front. The primary thing that we have to look into before adding a new place is what data are available there. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we were able to get Puerto Rico in, but in the whole country, besides Puerto Rico, ESRI demographics are used traditionally in ParkServe, and then the addition of Puerto Rico, now we have ACS from census-based data, and then all of our other data sets like Landsat and EPA EJ Screen and a couple other ones were all available in Puerto Rico, but the missing link was CDC health data. So I didn't do the prioritize in Puerto Rico, but if you do that, those slider bars don't do anything because those health data aren't available in Puerto Rico, which is a huge bummer. And you can't view them on the map. So that's something that we consider before we add, that it felt like it was still a useful, to put Puerto Rico in despite not having health data because we have literally everything else. But that's like kind of the first step, is exploring what fits in lock and key with the rest of ParkServe and what's going to be customized and what's not available at all.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, I know the more that we've been working with data in the Caribbean, we've also had some surprises on data we thought would surely be available there, but isn't there. So that's really interesting that CDC health data isn't available in Puerto Rico. So Doug Newcomb asked about how you add missing parks. Y'all have covered that with the park reviewer tool. It's great that y'all have such an obvious pathway for people to be able to submit new data and corrections. Doug also was asking about pushing data back to OpenStreetMap, which it sounds like isn't something y'all do yet, but that y'all are talking more to them. Do you all use OpenStreetMap data in ParkServe?
All of the new parks that were added in Puerto Rico are from OpenStreetMap, and all of the playgrounds that I turned on are from OpenStreetMap. And we also take all of OpenStreetMap's trails data and mesh it with USGS trails data to get the trails and parks. And those are the three applications. And we are starting to have conversations with OpenStreetMap about how we can better partner.
That's awesome. We've been working more with OpenStreetMap data in this blueprint update as well. I feel like it has a lot of untapped potential for the blueprint too. Were you going to say something, Kirsten?
Just to talk about kind of our flow of the sources we've used over the years. As Kristen mentioned, we started with really like looking at the local government data. And then, so that's kind of our priority, is getting data from the source. And then we were using PAD data as well, and then filling the gap with PAD and OSM. And I always have been pleasantly surprised with how great OSM data is, both in the actual shapes we get from them, and then also using that as a tool to help us QA/QC data we receive in the reviewer using their base maps as well. So it's been a great tool.
Gotcha. Yeah, we enjoy looking at OpenStreetMap and seeing how lovingly digitized so many things that people have really put in, obviously, so much time and care. Let's see, I'm just scanning back through. Another question, do you break down how much of the park area is local, state, and federally owned?
Not in ParkServe, but when we are assessing for park score cities, so for the 100 most populous cities, we really do a deep dive into all of the entities that are involved in the park system. So we send out surveys to all landowners within the city and also the conservancies and nonprofits that engage in the park system. And so we're able to, not spatially, but through our survey, capture how much parkland each of these entities owns or manages within the city. And then we have that data posted in the city park facts tables, where you're able to see by each city kind of who are the key landowners within the city.
Great. Thanks. A question from Alyssa Kwan in the chat. You mentioned equity based on race and income, which are both obviously great. Are there also mechanisms of ability, like America's Disabilities Act, included at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as we were developing our equity metrics, we were really exploring kind of all of the really important critical indicators for this. And what it came down to for this particular measurement were those indicators that were really spatially segregated. So when you look at race and income, those are the two factors where you see this spatial play, where you have block groups that are majority low income, majority communities of color, and really that disparity is what we're assessing in this particular metric. Is that kind of segregation of these communities. And as we're continuing to build out this metric, we're really looking at the other great characteristics of parks that promote inclusion for all communities, that are the ADA components and other safety and accessibility measures. And we're doing that through some pilot studies where we're working in the city of Cleveland doing park condition assessment that's actually going park to park and looking at the quality of the amenities within the park, the pavement, are there cracks, and really doing a more localized assessment that's not quite scalable to what we're working with at Park Score, and definitely not the ParkServe scale, but really trying to use these pilot studies as ways to kind of promote the importance of all of these other critical characteristics of parks under this equity lens.
That's fantastic. We do have a question from Laurie about how could an agency get you our current data, particularly for trails? And Doug Newcomb's actually already answered this in the chat for me, which is to say that if you were to push your data to OpenStreetMap for trails, it sounds like it would show up, and I would be very excited about that as well. All of SECAS would, because that would also get it in our Greenways and Trails indicator in the blueprint. But is there another pathway other than OpenStreetMap that you would recommend?
This one's a little bit tricky because we actually clip the OpenStreetMap trails data to our park polygons. So we're not, at this time, for the whole ParkServe database, we're not showing the entirety of the trail system as it stands in OpenStreetMap. And that's a decision we made just because in some places we can't verify that a user drew in a trail that's going across private land. And our parks data are verified to be publicly accessible. And so we're just showing those trails that we can, with a level of confidence, be like, you can't actually walk on these without, being on private land necessarily. So and we are having talks about this with greenways and trails and stuff like that. So that might evolve as time goes on. But for now, it is just trails in parks, but we do have like buffered greenways, so the trails will show up if that, like buffered greenways count as parks right now, so the trails and those will show up. Kirsten, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess kind of on that greenway note, we do have a larger definition of what we consider a park, and under that falls, those greenways, those trails that offer kind of a park-like experience. And so when you go into the ParkServe application, you'll see that we do have some buffered trails, kind of linear parks, those types of features, kind of the critical criteria is really that public access piece, and access to opportunities to recreate. So it is a larger spectrum than just a city park.
So Laurie's following up to say that she works for the National Forest System. There are perhaps some old roads showing as trails that aren't actually designated trails. So is there some way to get that to you? It still sounds like digitizing them in OpenStreetMap as trails, assuming the national forests are showing up as parks and ParkServe, which I would expect that they would be able to be pulled into ParkServe that way.
Yes. Yep. Any trails and parks will show up on our annual update. We download it all from OSM and refresh it annually.
Yeah.
Laurie, go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
Yeah, OSM's a bit tricky from the government standpoint because they have a data license. So we can't pull, as a federal government, their data in because it's into our public domain maps. But they can pull any of our data into their maps because it is public domain. No problem with that. So if you have a local group that is near your national forest system, or you have a network that you can contact and say, hey, we've updated our maps for trails and such, they should be able to pull those into OpenStreetMap. One issue that's been ongoing is that people will put trails in that are not approved, shall we say, and might go into sensitive areas. And I think there's some discussion underway with the OpenStreetMap folks and DOI about how to best get accurate data into OpenStreetMap.
Yeah,
Sounds like Amy's coming in.
Thanks so much for sharing this, Doug. So some of this stuff is new to me. We have been working with OpenStreetMap in the blueprint, and we've been talking with people from there. So we need to dig into this and understand better the limitations, because some of the things you're saying are things that I didn't understand or know. So
yeah, shoot me an email. Shoot me an email, and I can hook you up with a couple of people in DOI that are more familiar with the issues.
Okay, thank you.
I think for many of these limitations, that's one of the big reasons we developed the Park Reviewer application, which is kind of inspired essentially from OpenStreetMap in the sense of having that crowdsourcing tool. And the one kind of additional measure on our side is that those edits are submitted directly to a human on our team who reviews and approves them. So it goes through that QA/QC process where we're able to, ensure that everything that is coming in meets our standards, which is the big downside of trying to incorporate OSM data, is we don't have the ability to do that for all of those shapes that come in. So our preference is always first using the Park Reviewer application because it's just our native reviewer platform.
Thanks for all the questions, folks. I want to see if anybody just wants to hop off mute and jump in verbally. The chat's been rocking and rolling here. Anybody have a question they just like to go ahead and ask? I will say too, Laurie, if you're interested in getting your trails captured, we did have to do kind of a last minute schedule change on the web form because we had a last minute cancellation. So we were going to have our presentation on OpenStreetMap today, and Kristen and Kirsten were very gracious and bumping their presentation up by 2 months. And so we hope to hear from OpenStreetMap folks in August, a little bit more of a discussion of how that process works and how you can contribute data and digitize trail information within that platform. I'm hoping that's going to be in August, depending if we can get them rescheduled. So there may be opportunity on one of these upcoming web forums to learn a little bit more about that. Let's see, any other questions? I'm just going to pause. Oh, go ahead, Kristen, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking, I'm looking at the comment now from Laurie that we also incorporate the USGS trails system, and I'm not 100% where all their data come from. They compile it across various sources, but if y'all's trail data can crosswalk with it, like coordinate with the USGS trails data. I don't know if that's feasible, but that's another data source that we combine with OSEN.
Yeah, great point. I think that USGS data set is something that we've considered in our greenways and trails indicator as well. So this is a good prompt for us to look back at that too as a potential data source. I know it can be kind of tricky to reconcile, you know, if you have like two different copies of a trail, one and they're just like slightly off, you know, then trying to figure out how to reconcile that. But that's a good data set for us to look into on our side too for the blueprint. So I'm going to pause just one more time and see if anybody else has questions. Thank you so much for the active discussion. This has been fantastic. Obviously, a ton of interest in this data set.
Cool. I would just say if, oh, there's one. Let me just make the comment that if y'all are on ParkServe and you have any additional suggestions, that user survey, if you click the 3 lines and go to survey, that's a good way of giving us feedback. You can also, I can put in the ParkServe's email so you can continue to have a conversation later. It looks like there's one more comment.
Yeah, about rural areas. Is there any plan to address the larger rural areas with some kind of metric for the empty areas on ParkServe coverage?
Right now, no. We decided that the extent of the ParkServe urban parks database should be urban areas. And there are plenty of pretty rural places in ParkServe because a little tiny CDP could be overlapping an urban area just by a little bit, and it's included. And some rural areas have just a tiny little urban core as census designated urban core. So there are some rural areas, but the underlying data with which we derive population estimates are by block group, and in rural areas, those are pretty big. And so our estimates are unreliable. And we also have had conversations about how the 10-minute walk is really most appropriate in urban and urban adjacent areas. In other, you know, the GIS team of Trust for Public Land has been doing analyses in rural areas for a long time, and they look at things like conservation and habitat connectivity and water resources, and those are all customized to the local area. And we talk to communities about their priorities for conservation and open space, and those are just housed in a different place. So we do have analyses that are very focused on rural areas, but the 10-minute walk framework doesn't quite fit yet. And we've thought about it a bunch of different ways. So if you have any suggestions, you can definitely email this parkserve.manage that I just added to the chat. But yeah.
That's a good question. I know that's something we've wrestled with in our indicators in the blueprint as well. You know, just trying to figure out the role that parks play in rural areas. Just seems like it's maybe a little bit of a different role than they play in urban areas, and they're still important, but it's just a different landscape. Like you said, the 10-minute walk in a much more spread out type of setup for a community might not be the right lens. That's very thought provoking.
Yeah, in other projects we've done drive times, like 10-minute drive, 20-minute drive. How many acres are available within a 60-minute drive of the individual locations? But none of that is in ParkServe. Yeah.
Sure. Well, for time, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the discussion off there, but I will pause again at the end of my closing slides, just in case something occurs to you in the meantime. So hang tight if you have another question. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again and just give you all a quick preview of what to expect on next month's web forum. That's going to be July 20th, same time as today, but we will be using different connection information. You do need to pre-register for this web forum via Zoom. We're co-hosting with the Southeast Climate Adaptation Science Center, as we sometimes do. I'm really excited about this presentation. We're going to be hearing from Anna Petrosova with the North Carolina State University Center for Geospatial Analytics, and she is going to be talking about a contiguous US-wide run of the Futures Urban Growth Model that was developed to address the environmental and ecological impacts of urbanization by capturing how development is spatially structured. So Futures was run successfully for a couple of regional applications, and they've scaled up the analysis to simulate future urbanization at a 30-meter resolution across all of CONUS using NLCD data. So Anna's going to talk about the model and some of the challenges that they ran into with scaling it up, present the results that they found, and discuss how they intend to keep this product up to date, which is something we always love to hear. So we are using Futures urban growth data in the Southeast Blueprint Explorer viewer, and I think the data is very, very close to being publicly released and their publication put out. So I'm really excited to hear more about this. And if you're interested in urban growth data, maybe if you've used Sleuth in the past and are interested in kind of learning about this next generation urbanization model, I definitely encourage you to tune in next month. And then finally, I wanted to ask Rua to jump in with a quick update from your SECAS staff. We're working hard on post-workshop blueprint improvements based on y'all's feedback, and I thought he might just touch on some of the things we're thinking about.
Yeah, so we made a bunch of good progress in stuff post-workshop. So thanks everyone for if you made it to the workshops and providing some feedback onto what we got. So we had these 9 virtual workshops looking at some of the places we're making big improvements in the blueprint this year. So that's the Gulf and Atlantic, and then also the Caribbean, so Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So we got lots of great comments. We looked at all those and have been making improvements in the different indicators post those workshops. And so some of the stuff we've been working on in the Gulf Ocean, improving indicators for hard bottom and marine mammals, those are looking really good. Potential new indicator for highly migratory fish. Fingers crossed, that's really close. We're very optimistic that will make it in there. And so that's super cool. Atlantic, we're kind of improving an indicator for deep sea coral with some newer data, which is exciting. And also in the Caribbean, we've been working on improving indicators for patch size, landscape condition, greenways and trails, and then also potential new indicators for things like karst habitat and beach nesting species. So as usual, we may not be able to nail every single one of these in the final blueprint, but we're making really awesome progress on a bunch of them. So we're expecting some good improvements post-workshop in the final blueprint. And then I guess Hillary already mentioned next steps. We're just going to fix whatever we can this year. Anything we can't fix, we'll document in the known issues and prioritize for next year's update. And yeah, full Southeast blueprint on track, on time, coming in October this year.
Thanks so much, Rua, and look for a blog in the June newsletter for SECAS summarizing in a little bit more detail what we heard from workshops, who came, and some of the fixes that we're trying to incorporate. I think I better wrap up here before my voice just completely decides it's done. So I always like to wrap up with how to get involved in SECAS. You can sign up for our newsletter on the footer of any page of the SECAS website. That will get you signed up for our once monthly newsletter and a reminder about this monthly web forum series, so you know what's on deck for each month. Obviously, would love you to connect with your SECAS staff. We're available to help you use the blueprint if you're interested in incorporating it into a grant proposal, a conservation plan, or some decision that you're looking to make. And then please do explore the Southeast Conservation Blueprint and let us know how it's working for you, and get excited about 2023, improved coverage of the Caribbean, brand new priorities for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and some improved priorities for the offshore marine environment and the contiguous Southeast as well. Any other questions in our last 4 minutes? Anything that you'd like to ask your SECAS staff or our TPL folks today? All right, not hearing any. Thank you so much, Kristen and Kirsten, for moving your presentation up and for doing such a fabulous job. You can tell from the attendance and the discussion, people are really excited about this topic. So everybody have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks everyone.
Everybody.